Hello, everyone. Welcome. And really excited about today's call with Jonathan Lamb from Standard Bank and Andy Wilson. Just while we're waiting for people to join, a bit of housekeeping, a bit of what we're going to go and cover. The first thing is, please ask your questions. We set these up so that you get the opportunity to access people like Jonathan and Andy. And so I really want to see the questions coming through. Pop them in the chat, put them in the Q&A. It really doesn't matter. The Q&A I might just pick up on a little bit quicker. 45 minutes is what we've got. We're gonna stick to that as much as we can, which will be 45 minutes. So 1:45, we're going to finish, leave you time for coffee for your next meetings. And during that time, I want to cover 3 or 4 things. Firstly, well, let's actually give you a bit of history. I came across this little project which kind of stunned me. It was something that I wasn't expecting between two large businesses, two large organizations. There's a project which has ESG at the center of it. And I thought to myself, there's two weird things that are happening here. Firstly, we've got big businesses that are collaborating on something, and they're doing something which has got a for-profit motive for sure, but there's people and planet involved. And I thought, is this the start of something? Are we at a tipping point? Because historically, I've not come across too many examples, particularly, and I don't want to be nasty to anyone, but particularly when we talk about banks. That's my background as well. I'm not picking on you there, Jonathan, and telcoms. So what was it that they stumbled upon? How did you end up partnering with each other? What else can we expect? Is this the start of more initiatives, more ecosystem plays, more collaborations, not just between you guys, but as industry as a whole? And is this a tipping point where we're starting to see people and planet become as important as profit when businesses go and set their strategies? That's what we're going to try to cover. Let's kick off. Jonathan, would you just do a quick intro, please?
Morning, Colin, and thanks very much for the time today, and it's great to be here with you and Andy. And we can all see that you've got a history in banking, Colin, because you've arrived here in a jacket today, unlike our telco colleague on the line. So I'm part of the CIB side, the corporate investment banking side of the bank, and more specifically part of a relatively new team called CIB Digital. And our purpose is really twofold. Firstly, we want to make sure that we can sort of stay ahead of the game when it comes to how our big businesses that we bank, our big corporates, digitally engage with us across our product sets. It's the first real objective, is to make sure that we are creating a great client experience from a digital engagement point of view. And the second key objective is really to now partner our clients on what we call non-traditional, beyond traditional banking products. And that's the second sort of reason for our being as a new business unit within the CIB business.
Lovely. How did you get into that? Because I'm assuming that you come from quite a traditional banking background, and you're now heading up this platform business. And what was the brief story to get into that? Because, and I'm asking that because I'm wondering if you're an island. I'm wondering if all of your banking colleagues are sitting there chasing loans and profits and cross-sell and all the normal types of stuff. We don't have to comment on that, but whether you're getting support from people to go and actually drive this platform ESG, because it is radically different from what typically banks have done in the past.
Yeah, I think, Colin, and the story really starts with a few key enablers that have allowed us to really execute and get to where we've got to today. And the first one, and probably the most important one, is a group strategy. You would have seen a change, or the next evolution in the Standard Bank group strategy to move towards this platform-based mindset, this ability for us to now use this well-understood business model and allow us to really serve our clients on the continents in a different way. And so strategy was a key enabler. We wouldn't have been able to do this without a clear strategy that is well understood and articulated out to the market. I am definitely from a traditional banking background, spent most of my career in the transactional banking business. And really, when you think about how and what we've got as a bank, because of our traditional product lines, which are our bread and butter and will continue to be our bread and butter for the foreseeable future, those have given us a great brand, a great access point into corporate Africa. And if you overlay a platform-based business model on top of that, you've then got almost like a competitive advantage in the market, because we've already got this community of big business that trust us, that know us, and we can now in a licensed way or in a strategic manner, start to broaden our opportunities with the clients and really partner them on their own digital journeys, whether it be financial or not. And that's really how we sort of got to where we are.
All right, so we need to bring in OneHub. We need you to explain briefly what OneHub is before we can have a look at this solution which you've brought for blue collar workers and the partnership. Can you just tell us briefly about OneHub? And I think some of the services that are on it are also important to bring in, whether it's Identify or others.
Okay, so once you've got a clear strategy which allows you to now firstly embrace partnerships and execute on new non-traditional things, you need a mechanism to actually execute. You have to be able to move beyond just talking and strategic discussion. And OneHub really is that key capability, and I call it a capability because it's not just a technology platform. It's obviously heavily technology enabled, but it also has a very well thought out operating model and business structure behind it. And so really OneHub is our digital solutions marketplace where we are bringing together both our traditional financial products that we've had for a while, new financial products that we are creating innovative different access points, but also now these partnerships. So outside capability that we know and trust. We bring those into one place, we allow our clients to access them, we allow the development community within our clients, so the technologists to come in and access these things in a different way using APIs. And so it really is our marketplace that we use to execute on the platform-based strategy and mindset within the CIB business. So it's heavily focused on B2B. Now we've to your point, we've signed up 5 partners so far. Vodacom is one of them, and we'll talk about that relationship in a second. But the others are as interesting in that they bring capability that we know has a place in corporate workflows on the continent, because we've seen it and we've heard it from our clients. Things like Identify, which is a biometric identity management solution. Authentify, our partnership with Transaction Capital, which takes the use of data to another level to benefit our clients in decision-making early on in the onboarding and the credit process, and others. And really the theme is we chase client problems we see in the market, we find the right partners, we use a very structured framework to bring them into a real platform that clients are already engaging into. And that really is OneHub.
So that's awesome. Reminds me of, I mean, platform plays are clearly getting a lot of news. Salesforce, perhaps one of the most well-known, one with force.com and their sort of app store. And I love the idea that you're bringing on third parties so that they can actually use your distribution and you can go and take their services and their skills to go and actually give them that distribution. Now, at some point, however, it's not really however, your guys are now going out in Africa and they're looking at doing the normal lending and the CIB business. You know, they're sitting there and they're looking at the FX. Somewhere along that journey, someone has put 2 and 2 together and they've thought, we need to get in contact with Jonathan. We need to have a look at OneHub, because there's a real problem that this client has got that, although it's not in our core business line, we think we can play a part in solving. Can you expand on that story?
Yeah, sure. I think, you know, when you're running a business with a platform-based mindset, you need to actually do 2 things in parallel. Firstly, to your point, you need to be engaging into your client base through your existing relationships, through our relationship managers and our client-facing teams. And you need to start landing the message that we're now open for business for more than just our traditional product. So we've spent a lot of time over the last 12, 18 months with our client-facing teams, with our clients directly, really getting that message out there, using the OneHub platform to help sort of solidify that message. So that's the first thing you need to be doing. While you're doing that, you're looking for these problem statements. When you can sort of articulate to your clients that you now have the ability to actually execute and serve them in these non-traditional spaces, you need to look for key problem statements. You need to try and see ones that you think are repeatable across multiple clients in the same sector, the same country, or even across sectors. And you need to really pick proper, tangible problem statements In our case, we also have that ESG, SDG lens that helps us sort of navigate which problem statements are going to be most impactful to solve. While you're doing that, though, to make sure that you can solve these non-traditional problem statements, you need to be engaging partners. These things don't happen overnight. You need to be out in the market engaging the likes of an identifier, of a Vodacom, and others. This is a very non-exclusive environment that we've created. So you need to be out in the market engaging partners to understand who might be able to help you when you find that problem statement that you really want to solve for the client on the other side of the discussion.
So who found the problem, and what was the problem they found?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go. So we found the problem with an initial discussion with a big mining client of ours. The problem sort of manifested itself in a few high-level discussions. We then realized that actually there was something here. The strategy had been bought into from both sides. It was quite a nice fit into what this particular client wanted to do in their operations. And so what we then did was we brought together the three parties. We facilitated it. We brought our clients and some key
Jonathan,
stakeholders.
can we just get into what the actual problem was? This was a blue collar issue, right?
Sure. Yeah. So the problem statement was, well, we worked the problem statement out. It was there, but not really crystallized. We worked it out after a focus session with the client and Vodacom. The problem is quite simple. A blue collar workforce, so any corporate that's got a blue collar workforce or a frontline workforce that is manually working every day, they're not digitally engaged. Very different if you contrast it to a typical office worker who's very digitally engaged. That means that there's two big problem statements. The first one is digital inclusion, access to the ability for these individuals to be digitally engaged. And secondly, engagement back into the organizations that they work for. So connectedness, inclusion, sort of feeling a sense of belonging to the organization is very difficult if you don't have a means to properly digitally engage communications bidirectionally between yourselves and this blue collar workforce. So that was the problem statement that we uncovered through the discussions.
So I think it's good to just go and draw that through, because that has got nothing to do with banking, right? This has got nothing to do with finance. It's got nothing. It's not even a problem that you necessarily are facing in the same sort of way within a banking environment. We're talking about blue collar workers out on site, difficult conditions, and looking for ways for them to feel more engaged with the entity, the company that they're part of, with each other as a community, ways to feel that they're being given the information that they need to fulfill whatever it is that they're actually doing. These are fundamentally different problems than banks normally step in to try to go and solve. Okay, so you've got into this discussion, with them. Someone's gone and found this. How did you then actually come to the conclusion you're going to now engage with Vodacom and actually bring yourselves together to see if you could actually jointly solve this issue?
So we'd already been engaging with Vodacom, but it was really just strategic discussion, and there were lots of things being talked about. Once we realized this problem statement was real, tangible, and that our client was comfortable in us helping solve that problem, which we'd established with them, we then went to Vodacom and unpacked it deeper, and we uncovered a great fit, a relationship that Vodacom have with the wizetalk solution, which really does solve for blue collar worker engagement. And so we connected those dots, and again, it didn't happen overnight. There was a lot of discussion, and you have to dig into the detail a bit. But when we did connect the dots, it then really snowballed, and the ability for us to then prove that this partnership model can help us execute a lot faster with benefit to all really did sort of come to the fore.
So Andy, let's bring you on. I mean, you must have fallen off your chair when a bank came to you asking to solve the S from an ESG problem for a company out across Africa for blue collar workers.
Yeah, thanks very much, Colin. And yeah, I didn't fall off my chair, because I think that the fact that Jono brought this client, was the kind of fruition of what we were looking for, and I'll get into that now. So maybe just introducing myself. I've been building a new go-to-market for Vodacom Business in the enterprise space at Vodacom. We sit within the Ventures and Partnerships stable. And really what our mandate has been is, as Vodacom transitions from a telco to a technology company, it's assembled a bunch of assets and partnerships. There's various partnerships. There's a number of organizations in the ventures stable, such as IoT.next, Mezzanine, etc. And so we've got a broad set of capabilities, and really the capability that I have been building is really around an integrated go-to-market. We want to get into the strategies and the problems that our most important enterprise customers are trying to solve, in that spirit of trying to solve them rather than, throwing various technologies at them. And the reality is that in order to do that, you need to move out of the kind of the CIO stable basically onto the business agenda. So the story from our side is that just moving into kind of the partnership that we were trying to foster with Standard Bank and others. This is not by no means exclusive. Is what we were trying to do is really get into a space with Standard Bank where we could kind of co-create value, as we see it as 10x. And we were actually hitting it at a number of different places within the organization. So we were working with the innovation group. We were actually working with CRB within the mining space. And then we were also having conversations with Jono around the OneHub API marketplace. We have got a similar kind of marketplace. We actually, through various conversations, we decided that mining was going to be the area that we really felt that we could kind of focus on. Clearly, if you drive from Joburg to Durban, you see all these mining trucks going down. We've got IoT sensors, there's weigh bridges, there's people crossing borders, there's transactions, there's all sorts of things going on. So we were actually, doubling down on the mining problem statement. And trying to understand that industry. In fact, we had guest speakers come in and we had joint sessions trying to educate us, both from our organization, their organization, and third parties. And then one day, Jono phoned me and said, "I've got a mining client. Let's go." But the very interesting thing was that, as he's articulated, the problem statement was not exactly where we thought it would be. We didn't realize it would actually be firmly and we'll unpack, I guess, that a bit later, in the kind of blue collar worker, social and community engagement space. And we've got a very, very powerful value proposition around that.
How does that sit? I mean, has this been an easy relationship to build? And where I'm going there is, what I'm used to when you look at big businesses, you compete with each other. There are obviously large areas where the telcos are looking to go and move into the banking space. You're obviously big clients of each other because you're supporting each other both through financial products to Vodacom and telco products going the opposite way. They make sense. These are relationships I can see how you can go manage. Now we've got this collaboration going on despite those kind of those two offsetting strategies. Have you found it easy to come together and build this relationship?
Yeah, I mean, it's been, Colin, it's been very, very interesting because, as you said, we've had reciprocal business for years. I mean, Jono's got a cell phone. Unfortunately, actually, I think it is a Vodacom SIM card that he has in it, so that's good. We've got reciprocal business. We have financial services needs. We're the kind of the partnership, but at the end of the day, we also have been partners for forever. I mean, if you look at the value chains and you look at things like mobile money or M-Pesa in our case, every single rand, dollar, whatever the currency is in that mobile money is actually held in a trust account in a bank, with a banking license. So there's partnerships there. If you have a look at the banks moving into the kind of MVNO space, Standard Bank have actually got an MVNO. Actually, MTN is their kind of underlying service provider. So, but what is really different in this
You
space
want to
now?
just expand on what an MVNO is, just in case people don't know?
It's basically a virtual mobile network operator. So they don't actually operate the network, but basically have an offering, a kind of a consumer offering. So a lot of the banks have kind of got into that space around these technologies. So it's an additional offering, which kind of was also seen and has been seen as a kind of a layer of their kind of financial services bundle, getting into other value propositions.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, this relationship is non-binary. I think there was a time like 10 years ago where it was like, we can't go and talk to each other because banks are going to be like, mobile network operators are going to be banks one day. So, because, it was a very binary conversation. But as kind of this world has matured, and I think as we've seen the power of partnerships, come out of fintechs and, garages and coffee shops and what have you, this has kind of moved into the corporate space. And I think it's really, really exciting, because what is different here is that actually we've got together basically to solve for another client. So it's not actually to put a service offering out where one of us is kind of a supplier of the other, or an enabler of the other. We've got together actually to go and solve for another client. And what was amazing, I mean, Jono, referred to, I mean, we had a session where the miner basically, came down from Europe and from the equator. In fact, I was supposed to be doing the call from this mining town. I don't think we can call it a town anymore. Somewhere nearer the equator. Maybe I should have been there with this cold front moving into Joburg overnight. But yeah, I mean, that session was absolutely amazing. And I think a lot of kudos must actually go to the clients as well, because we built a roadmap. We built an entire roadmap of the problem statement that was on the table. But I think what was very evident is that what came out of it is really two platforms. The one was a platform for the blue collar worker, which we all know is a cell phone. These are people that don't have an email address. They've been excluded, digitally. They've been, and COVID has been really, really hard on them. I think we should unpack that, because I think that's the reality. And we've now got to a time in our lives where we can include those people, in the internet, in that value proposition, and that's immensely powerful. So that was the one platform. And then the other platform was, the vision of OneHub, and really around what it was trying to do as a software as a service model to customers like the miner that we engaged with.
And what
Maybe
was basically described? Maybe Jonathan, you want to go through it at a high level. I understand that the collaboration that you've come to allows staff to be onboarded through onto the channels using OneHub, using the Identify platform. They've got the wizetalk initiative, which then enables them to engage with each other with all the functionality that wizetalk brings, and you've got your distribution of your network powers to make this a cost-efficient way for the company to go and actually cover the billing for these services. Jonathan, is that roughly correct in terms of what the solve was?
Yeah, exactly. Colin, once we'd spent this time together in this very focused sort of ideation workshop, we really started to solidify exactly what the components of the solution look like. And I think, just feeding on from something that Andy's just said, this relationship became easier because of the fact that we've got two teams on either side that are dedicated at looking at these non-traditional problem statements. So yes, we've got a set of foundational traditional products that we've both sold into the market. Yes, industries are converging. Telcos and banks are converging in how they think about their businesses. But the fact that both of the teams between the CIB digital team and the digital co-ex team on the Vodacom side made the discussion and the getting to the end easier. So to dig into your question, there's a couple of components to this. Firstly, the ambition is to uplift the end user. So that end user device is made up of two things. It's the wizetalk solution, which allows for this bidirectional communication between employer and employee. It's an identify plugin, which allows for security in the world of digital engagement, again, between employee and employer. And then it's a set of use cases that we've really worked out are going to be most impactful to the end user. Things like showing a leave balance or a shift schedule, or who is my current listed dependents. All of these things are incredibly important to the employee, and without digital engagement or digital interaction point, are incredibly manual tasks to achieve. So that's what we've sort of put together. It's early days still, but we believe that even in the first release, it's going to be very impactful and change really the lives of these individuals and the engagement they have back to the organizations they work for.
If I can
let's ask Marcus's question to you now. Sorry, Andy, go on.
Yeah, if I can just add there, because I think, one of the sort of like the human stories that really impacted me in this journey is, I think when COVID came along, we all went on to Zoom and to Teams, and we, used email, and we used all these different things. That blue collar worker in that mining town, actually management suddenly wasn't arriving. They weren't having town hall meetings. They were kind of really, dislocated in many respects from communications from their organizations. And now basically, and it is also a technology story, because I think that with the cost of devices and communication and the way that you're able to suppress bandwidth and deliver videos and all that kind of stuff, but we won't go into that. And I'm the last person to go into that. But at the end of the day, that capability is really fundamental. And so now you've got a situation with wizetalk, who we've partnered with. And they have rolled their application out to a number of blue collar workforces. And one of the stories that Gijs, the founder, tells is that they had a CEO deliver a message to their blue collar workers. Now, in this case, this miner, their seniors are located in another, another continent virtually. So they are able to kind of deliver a message to that mine worker in their kitchen. And at the end of the day, the morale effect that would have, and the sense of kind of belonging is, you can't measure that stuff. And in fact, one of the sound bites that came out from Gijs is that one of their clients, they had an average viewing of 8 times of that video, average viewing per employee.
Wow.
I mean, just think about that. Isn't that mind-boggling? And what that does to staff retention and all those kinds of things. So really like bringing these people in to a digital life.
How did you, this is Marcus's question, but it's a great question. How did you solve for the costs? I mean, it's something that comes up. It doesn't matter where you are in Africa. We have to accept that we are more expensive for data than most other parts of the world. Far too expensive. And it's a big issue when we want to go and uplift all of society. How have you dealt with the actual internet costs and access for these workers? I'm assuming this one's for you, Andy. This sounds like a Vodacom solve.
Yeah, well, we haven't had to kind of change our cost model, fundamentally. I mean, the reality is that as a mobile network, we don't actually make profits on hardware. So the hardware component is kind of a pass-through, because that's the access device, to the network. And then in terms of the actual data, I mean, in this particular case, each mine worker is getting 8 gigabytes of data, which has meant we've had to actually invest heavily in the network in that area and in the subsequent areas, and essentially, so that is all kind of bundled, and obviously because you're multiplying it by thousands of blue collar workers, you can kind of get to a more economical price point. But ultimately, the employer is footing the bill
with
on
a
behalf
reverse billing, with a kind of reverse billing sort of model.
Well, it's not really it is reverse billing but in the case that they may run out of data, but they're actually given an application. So they're given an allocation of data and airtime per month, each mine worker, which is not really reverse billed. It's billed straight to the miner, the organization that is.
So I want to go back to an earlier question.
Colin,
yeah, go on. Sorry.
Can I just feed on this point? So yes, there's a cost in digitally including someone, and yes, there's a cost in the software that goes on top that it facilitates the engagement. I think, what we've seen certainly, and it's not just for the first sort of transaction we've done, but in the market, is when the message is inclusion and engagement and the benefits on this from a empowering your workforce point of view, the costs, the business case does stack up here. So, the employer takes their decision to properly invest in the workforce, especially if it's a big under-engaged portion of their business. So the business case and the mechanics do make sense here from what we've seen, and the history sits in the client base that Gijs and the wizetalk team have already got on this platform.
And I think, the other important point is that, for example, the wizetalk and the identifier applications are homegrown. They're grown on the continent of Africa and developed here for Africans. I mean, they do have other global clients, but they're homegrown. And obviously, the economic point at which they come across is nothing like your big, HR, type applications that we probably are using in our corporate sense that can't scale to the blue collar worker.
Have you dealt? This was an earlier question. I want to ask it now before I forget, but it's something that's been bothering me as well. How have you dealt with the compliance and confidentiality issues? Because obviously we're talking about data. We've got papaya that's sitting there and getting in the way, and knowing both of your industries, there's a huge amount of pressure from your internal compliance officers in the right way. I've got nothing against compliance. That you've got to be very careful about the data that you share and how you access. And that's just within organizations. You could do CIB versus retail, and that's quite tricky to share information, let alone now going CIB to Vodacom. Have you dealt with that?
So maybe I can start on that. And you're right, Colin, we've got two big organizations here who are firstly onboarding themselves into each other for the purposes of solutioning around a common client. So the regulatory, the compliance, the due diligence that we did on this was very comprehensive. And rightly so. And that's actually one of the reasons why it's attractive to clients, because they know that these things have been done through the rigor of a big telco and a big bank's legal compliance regulatory frameworks. The trick to data privacy is making sure you understand exactly where all the data is stored and who has to consent to what. We use our sort of highest common denominator of PAPIA and the regulations that are most stringent as our benchmark. We properly understand all components of the solution, which data sits where, which data is anonymized, which is not, which is personal. And then we make sure that we get the right consent from the right, ultimately, individuals whose data we're storing. We then have to make sure that it is stored in the right manner in compliance with those regulations. So we have by no means cut any corners on the compliance, regulatory, operational risk elements of this construct. And that's really one of the competitive advantages we see. It might sound strange to say that, but going through that rigor has created confidence in us being able to do this through OneHub with a partner like Vodacom.
And I think, Colin, if I can just come in there, we've been through the pain in many respects, and we only had to go through it once. So, I think that the deal was sort of a handshake in about 3 weeks, or if that. The actual contracting, and what's actually quite interesting is that, if you take these two heavyweight logos, Standard Bank and Vodacom, our legal and compliance areas are normally sort of contracting, with smaller organizations. Now suddenly they had to face off each other. So yeah, I mean, it did take a period of time to kind of get it all dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure that everything was acceptable to both parties. But we've done it.
Following on, question here from Corbus. How do you see this operating model? I'm guessing at the moment you put this still down as an experiment, perhaps a collaboration. How do you see this progressing over the next numbers of months and years? Is this going to become a sustainable business, a full-time collaboration? Is it too early to answer the question? I don't know, Jonathan.
Yeah, so firstly, the operating model that sits under OneHub, without a doubt, we see as being way beyond an experiment now. We've proven it, it's out in the market. We've had this up and running for a year. We are very firm believers in the theme of solutioning for sustainability, and the problem statements we're going to tackle, which come from our clients, will follow that theme. This partnership with Vodacom, again, which is one partnership that we hope to do with many competitors and other fintechs, has proven that two big organizations can work together for the good of a common client, which means we've proven the ability and the power of a partnership. We've both got an incredible amount of capability, as do our other partners. And the trick and the operating model sort of focus we're driving now is, how do we properly connect those to real problems in the client environment? We see this as a core part of the overall CIB strategy to really serve our clients in more than just the traditional financial services products.
Yeah, and I think if I can also sort of take that one, I think this relationship can go many different angles. So as I said, we've got a roadmap with the miner, to execute on, and that sort of takes us into not only this digital inclusion, employee engagement, into financial inclusion, and beyond, and even into things like agriculture. We actually really firmly believe in getting into the ESG side. The impact on this on the communities, that mobile phone, when that mobile phone ends up going home, you can start using that as a platform for education, which has tremendous impact. So so I think, and then obviously the blue collar story, proven. We can kind of take that to other blue collar workers and industries within both our client base. So that's that's basically the potential on that particular proposition. And then in addition, other assets that we can kind of productize from our ecosystem. We have got basically the partnership. We've done the OneHub and technology partnership to be able to take the advantage of the marketplace that is OneHub.
We've got a number of questions coming in. I'm going to try to merge them a little bit to cover as many as we can in one go, because my word, the time's going. We've only got 5 or 6 minutes left. How shall I phrase it? What is the kind of net benefit of you guys collaborating on this? And where I'm getting to on that is, why aren't you doing it by yourself? So Vodacom do it by themselves, or wizetalk do it by themselves, or maybe Standard Bank. It's what is the net benefit of running this as a collaboration? And I suppose you can look at that from all angles, for the end client that's sitting there, for your own perspectives in the value adds for your businesses. It's you see where I'm going now. I'm trying to bring together quite a lot of different questions. I don't know, Jonathan, you have a crack at that one.
Look, I think firstly, this is a new strategy on both sides that we're driving. So we do recognize that we've got to play to our strengths, right? We are not seasoned employee engagement experts, nor did we have any relationship with wizetalk before we discussed this with Vodacom. If you buy into the principle that if you partner in the right ways, that you can get more of the market together than you would be able to individually, then it makes sense to do something like this. I think you could cut different parts of this overall value chain out if you wanted to, but my firm belief is it would be a lot harder and a lot slower to execute against. From the client's point of view, they are seeing two big organizations with seasoned track records in other areas, albeit, but that have shown that they can work together to execute something for them. So as long as you can continue to solve for the client problem together, the overall benefit of partnering to do this makes it simpler and, in my view, much quicker to get to market than if we were to try and cut any piece of this puzzle out and try and form any direct relationship.
And if I can take another spin on that, so, let me just start off with wizetalk as an example. The reason why they have partnered with Vodacom is precisely, you hit the nail on the head, Colin, is reverse billing. The ability to take away one of the kind of problems that they have in their go-to-market about who's going to pay for this. So you can get the corporate to kind of fund the blue-collar worker. I want to kind of bring a different spin, which is really around our purpose, which is kind of connecting for a better future. And if we then move into kind of our United Nations sustainability development goals and ESG, etc. If you actually have a look at, we have signed up to focus on delivering in 8 of those areas. So things like, gender equality and innovation and industry and that sort of thing. And actually the 17th one is partnership to deliver those. So to make the sort of impact that you want on in delivering your purpose. And Standard Bank has a very similar purpose in terms of Africa. And we actually, so this is really purposeful engagement around essentially improving the community's environment in which we live, which is fundamental to our purpose. And you have to do that by joining the dots. We brought a big ecosystem, Standard Bank brought a big ecosystem, and if we can actually bring those ecosystems together to actually solve, problems in our society, then that's better than flying alone.
Now, we've got, unfortunately, 3 minutes left, which means we're not going to get through all of the other questions. It always happens. It's very quiet for the first 20 minutes, and then everyone sort of piles in. I blame myself. We should have been more efficient at getting everything out there. My question to you is, for the people that have got questions that haven't been answered, can I forward them on to you? Is there a way that we can respond to them? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll work out a plan on the back of that. Yeah. Specifically to Boosie's question on this, third parties, what are your curation selection process? Can I suggest that we park that one, because this is the first of a series of events, and I think we better pick up on that in some of the future ones, because I definitely want to dig a little bit more into this platform as a service, non-traditional finance aspect, and there are some good examples out there about where this is going. And I think with that, Jonathan, maybe you'd like to introduce the rest of the series.
Yeah, okay. So, as Colin said, this is the first OneHub Insider Conversation on a very topical point. The next 2 are going to cover our specific relationship with Identify, and then finally with PowerPulse, which is a homegrown solution, which we'll cover in detail in that discussion. Also, both of these linked very much to this theme of sustainability, ESG. So the next one, Identify with our partner there. That'll be scheduled towards the end of September, and then the PowerPulse one will follow in October. We're hoping, again, that we can cover, hopefully we have repeat attendees and cover more and more questions off across these three initial sets of insider conversations from the OneHub team.
So we titled this with a rather long-winded framing, but I thought it was relevant. Hopefully you guys on the call now have got an answer. Can, should, and will banks and telcos collaborate for the benefit of society? I'm not going to ask Andy or Jonathan to answer those specific points. I just dangle it out there from what you've heard over the last 45 minutes for you to draw your own conclusions, and we can continue that debate and conversation in our own time. Thank you very much for everyone for joining. We'll send out more details about the next events once we firm up on the dates. Jonathan, thank you very much for attending and joining, and Andy, obviously, thank you very much for being here as well. And to all the people that I can't mention the names, there's too many in the background who have put these types of events together, I thank you very much as well. Have an awesome Wednesday, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.